Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have an interactive card. Now don't start panicking. I honestly love the look of interactive cards, but I panic because my brain just doesn't work that way. But this is like the easiest of interactive cards. I'm telling you that right now. So let's go ahead and start with our image. We're just going to go ahead and stamp that out. I'm going to put that inside my Mini Misty, and I'm going to stamp that onto some Express It cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I am going to do some Copic coloring, and these are both Copic friendly. So I'll just stamp my little image out. This comes from the My Favorite Things Start Each Day with a We, and this is from the Pure Innocence line. Now I had talked about the other day Sandy Allnock's Human Rainbow downloads, and so I have downloaded those, and I am going to start working on doing some different skin tones. And so I've got the colors E0000 and I've got E21. And now when you look at these, they look like they may not go together. I am going with the lightest skin tone I could because I'm trying to make this look like my little niece. This is for her birthday. And yes, I have a BV there. So I have a blue violet, and I know it looks a little bit strange, but bear with me. It makes it look more realistic. And so by putting that down, I'm going to start working the E21 over the top of that to blend that out. And even now, I'm not that pleased with it at this point. But you have to keep in mind that the paper is wet with the alcohol inks. So they are going to look a little bit different. When they dry, they will dry different. So I'll keep working that. And like I said, even at this point, I'm not super pleased with it. But I'm going to keep going. And then I'm going to grab my R11 for her cheeks. I kind of go outside the lines there, so I will grab my Copic blender, which is just a 0, and I'll let that work itself out. I'm going to move on to her hair, so I'm starting with Y00. My niece is a super blonde. She has, and even this color combination is a little bit dark for her hair color, but I thought it was cute, and I wanted to try and make it look as much like her as I possibly could. So the next color is Y21, and then I'm going to use YR12 just for the darkest color. And then I'll go back over that and blend those out. And it's starting to look like her. Now that the skin tone has dried onto the paper and her hair is done, it's really starting to look like my niece. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to move on to her shirt. And I messed this part up. So I meant to start with the R35 to start because that's actually a lighter color. But I started with the R27. And if you notice with the reds, I don't go right to the edge when I first put my color down. And the reason for that is, for whatever reason, the reds tend to bleed. And it's at this point I'm realizing the R35 was not my darker color. So I put that away and I grabbed my R29. I might as well just go with the next darkest color I could get. So I grabbed my R29 and I will add my darker parts, leaving some highlights. And then I'll take my R27 and go back to the edges when I am sure that I'm just about done with my blending. Because the more color that you put onto it, the more it will bleed outside the edges, which is why I always wait to go to the edges until I'm just about done. So I'll go and just do a little bit darker in a couple areas with the R29, and then her shirt is done. And now for her pants, I'm going to use some BGs. I've got BG18. I end up really loving this color for little shorts. I think that is such a cute color, and that with the red is just great. And then I'll go over the top of that with BG75. And I'll just blend out just a little bit with that BG18 because I noticed there are a couple spots that I didn't quite get. Then I'll move on to her shoes. I'm going to use the T's. I've got T5. And then I've got T7 for my darker shade. Trying to make it look like the light is obviously coming from the top, because if she is swinging, then the light would be coming from the one side. And then I'll blend that out, and then I will do some very simple coloring just for the swing using E33 for the rope. And then I will use E99 for the base of the swing, and that one little dot there in the center. I'll grab my Unigel, or Signo Uniball, not Unigel, Uniball, just for some highlights on her shoes. And then I will stick the matching die over the top and tape that down with a little bit of washi tape, and then I will run that through my Big Shot machine. It was a little too big to go through my Sidekick. Now I've got some Distress wood grain cardstock. This stuff is great because it has a wood grain texture. And I'm going to use some corduroy or brushed corduroy distress ink. This is just the regular distress ink, and I'm using my mini ink blending tools. And I'm just going to blend that all over the edge of that paper. I just trimmed this down because this is obviously going to be a tree. And then I'm going to move on to a darker color just to add a little bit more texture to this. And this is ground espresso. And once again, I will shade that on the outside. And then I'm going to spritz a little bit of water on that because this is distress paper. It'll take the water beautifully. And then it just adds even that much more texture to the wood grain look to make it look more like a tree. Now I want to do my background. And so for my background, I have some Kansan XL watercolor paper. I'm using my Vivas makeup brushes because I want this blending to be super soft. And I am using the color Tumbled Glass along with the Simon Says Stamp Clouds for Days stencil. Now I know My Favorite Things has a stencil, and I've actually considered getting it because I will be honest, as cool as I thought the inside clouds from this stencil were, I'm not digging them now. I just always seem to, this is why I have a post-it note there, I always seem to get the ink right there in the center there when I'm blending, and it just makes it a little bit more difficult. So I've thought about upgrading. And then I'll end up doing a little bit more there at the bottom. Now, this is how I meant for it to be. I meant for the clouds to look like that when I put it on the card, but you will notice I end up screwing it up later. And now it's time to start working the mechanism. So I always keep my dies on a little panel of, and these are the Marietta magnets, so that way I can keep them all together, and I just trim this one down in half, and I will have those listed down below if that's something you're interested in. But it always keeps my dies in place and where I need them. So I'll add a little bit of texture to the tree that came in that die, and this die is the interactive swing die. That's what it is. And it's great. So it comes with its own little swing, and I cut out only the pieces I thought I would need. I ended up cutting out one more piece that I didn't need, and I end up realizing this later. So I only needed 2 pieces from this die set to begin with. And that was crushed olive is the color I'm using there, just to add a little bit more texture to the tree itself. So those are the only 2 pieces I needed. That one long piece right there with the hole, because that's what's going to cause the mechanism to work, and then the tree. That's it for this particular stamp set. I'm putting a little bit of liquid glue on the back of that, and I am attaching that to my little girl, and I'll set that off to the side to dry. And this is where you'll notice that I have it upside down, my back panel, but it's okay. It works out all right. I was a little irritated at first, but it'll be fine. I can't change it now. I glued it down, right? This is where I'm like, oh no, my clouds. But oh well. I've seen people do it both ways, so it's fine. And then I am going to use one of these My Favorite Things spin and slide discs. It's just a little round one. And I'm going to stick that down using a little bit of liquid glue. You want to make sure on all these pieces that you are using some strong adhesive so that nothing moves. And then I'm going to use some Scotch foam tape so that way it gives some dimension to the tree and still covers the mechanism or the disc in the background. But you don't want to hinder your little girl being able to swing around, so I only put it on the outside edges. And then I will attach that to the top, and then you will see how she just kind of slides around. She's swinging. And I have seen people put a penny behind her to give her a little bit more weight so she swings even a little bit easier. But I didn't do that. I'm attaching that to a red card base. This is just a card base that I had in my stash because I thought that matched with her shirt very well, leaving a little bit of a red border on one end. And I love how she swings around. For my sentiment, I grabbed some black cardstock that I have just sitting off to the side, and I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. I'm using a couple of different stamp sets for my sentiment because I wanted this to be a birthday card. So I've masked off, or I'm just not stamping the high at the end, and I've got Swinging By with A. So I stamped that using Versamark ink, cover that with my white embossing powder, and then I'm going to grab a stamp from the Happy Birthday to You. It's another Pure Innocence stamp. And I am going to stamp out just birthday. All I want is birthday. So I'm sticking that on my stamp block, and I'm going to use a Post-it note to cover up happy and then I'll be careful not to ink up the other words at the end. So I'm just stamping, or I'm just inking up birthday. That's the only thing I want. I've said this before, I just don't have it in me to cut my stamps. I can't do it because I never line them up correctly afterwards. And then I'm going to stamp down high from the swinging by with a high. And then I will cover that with the embossing powder, and it works out perfect. So that way my sentiment will end up saying swinging by with a birthday high. And then I will heat that till it is smooth and melted. Now I'm grabbing this last stamp. This is from Birthday Bears, from My Favorite Things, and I just wanted the birthday sentiment to be on the inside because I thought it was so cute. Hope all of your birthday wishes come true. And then that's going to end up finishing off this card once I get those sentiments stamped down. I didn't want to add anything to it because I didn't want to hinder the little girl from being able to swing, but these cards are so fun, and that interactive element is so easy to do. I'll be making a bunch more of these. And so there it is. She swings back and forth, and I think my niece is going to have a really good time with that. So if you liked this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And as always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by.